First of all, let me just express the joy that I have this morning. Looking forward to this pre-conference presentation. Some of you are maybe for the first time would be hearing Kintsugi process. So let me introduce to you real quick the background of Kintsugi. I am Jeff Teo. I'm a CP supervisor for more than 20 years. I've been helping a lot of chaplains, not only providing education or even care, pastoral care for fellow chaplains. With CPE, I have, in my experience, seen the wondrous work of this process. It's magical. It brings transformation and healing to many chaplains. As you know, if you are in this circle, chaplain circle, and if you've been doing CPE for quite some time, and this might surprise those who haven't, maybe not, those who have no background in CPE, because we have participants today who would like to join this conference to have a taste of what CPE is like at the conference level. There are many chaplains who are broken, and there is no other place for them to go. Sometimes CPE is the only place available for them to heal. So CPE has been instrumental in providing that space of healing for many CPE trainees, for many chaplains and clergy who transition to chaplaincy. Now the question is, if this is something useful and helpful and transformational and healing, why can't we develop something for the general public? So this is the product of that question. Finally, after many years of putting things together and trying to break, the wall that separates CPE from the general public, who is longing to have something like this, that what we experience in CPE. We finally have something to offer to the general public, and this is called the Kintsugi process. I have written a book called Unshakable, Cultivating Resilience in Challenging Times. In that book is a product of this concept. Resilience and healing is what we offer to the general public. So transitioning to this, the community care chaplain started training, advanced training for clinical chaplain, to finally package this and deliver it to the many people who are in crisis and longing for a process like this. So today, I will be presenting a little background of the principle of Kintsugi process. But the highlight of the presentation today is the assessment tools that we use in Kintsugi process. Knowing the assessment tool would inform you and would give you an understanding of what it means to be a Kintsugi product of the process, the healing process, and at the same time would give you an understanding for those who would like to be Kintsugi mentors for others. You would somehow understand the kind of journey that you would be dealing with and offering to those who are in crisis. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here and we can start again. So this is called Kintsugi assessment tools, but understanding this tool will, again, give you a bird's eye view of what a Kintsugi process is. In Kintsugi process, by the way, Kintsugi is a Japanese art form. It's a very interesting, because this is not just a picture of putting pieces back together. As far as broken pots is concerned, this is also an image of how we can put ourselves back together as individuals, as persons. So you will be hearing a lot of wounds and brokenness in this presentation. That's where Kintsugi comes in. In Kintsugi process, when we listen to someone's story, by the way, the foundation of Kintsugi process is the narrative approach. We know that we tend to define ourselves based on our story, life story. And you will experience in Kintsugi process the journey from the very beginning towards the end is that in the beginning, many people are quite crippled by their stories. Meaning, there would be a time, especially if you're coming from a very wounded past, it is very hard for you to tell your story. And the reason for that is because we tend to be defined by our own stories. Our story possessed us. And then as we continue and experience healing, you will be surprised that you will come to a point where instead of your story possessing you, you will develop the freedom and the power to own and possess your story. And in fact, it will become a great channel of blessings. But let's start with the part when people present their stories. And some of the things that are difficult to share, it's because of the wounds we have experienced in the past. Let me start with relationship wounds. We have wounding in our relationship with self and our relationship with others. From Christian perspective, Judeo-Christian perspective, the second greatest commandment, as Jesus was trying to present to his listeners, is that love thy neighbor as thyself. That is very foundational. In that commandment, it's really the core of a living relationship with self and others. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And these two, because we're living in an imperfect world, we tend to, experience heartaches and wounding as we go on. So there are three different kinds of relationships, wounded relationships from that aspect. The first one is the wounding relationship with self. And then the next one is wounded relationship with others. And then the third one is wounded relationship with self and others. So I'm going to share with you how to listen to, when we, as chaplains, we hold space and listen to people's story. So it's very important for us when we listen, we can use this tool to guide us to somewhat identify what is hurtful, what is broken, what is wounded in their relationships. So let's start with relationship with self. You will people who tell their story and having struggled with these different kinds of woundedness, you will, if you have this lens and tool at the back of your mind, you will be alerted, by just holding a space and listening to their story. For example, if you hear that they doubt their inherent value and struggle with self-acceptance, that's an indication that there could be a wounding relationship with self. If they believe they're not enough, and they tend to cope with that without lack, they tend to cope by maintaining high internal standards. And then they tend to seek external validation for their worth. And then finally, another symptom is that there are many symptoms I'm just highlighting four. They tend to build strength to compensate for their perceived inadequacy. So the focal point in here is that A person who's wounded is, if especially if it's with self, they tend to see others worth more than themselves. They think of themselves less valued, less important, less significant, less loved. Now, the pendulum swings to the other end. Okay. Let's see. Okay, there you go.
Thanks.
The pendulum swings. The pendulum swings to the other end. I can't see. I don't have a control of my. I don't have tech support here for those who are just coming in. If you can mute yourself, that would be great. It will save us some background noise. But welcome everybody as you come in. So the pendulum swing to the other end. Let's talk about the wounded relationship with others. These are the symptoms. Okay, when you listen to someone's story, this person, they have quite confidence of their own value. The problem is they can't trust that others are able to see that they are valued. Okay, that's one example. Two, they do feel separate or different from others. And sometimes they are questioning, why do others don't get them? You know, again, it's a broken relationship with others. And then this person questions others' ability to deliver the way they can. Some of the wounded people are having a hard time delegating, for example, because they doubt that others can deliver. And some wounded people are actually don't want to enter in a serious relationship, not because they doubt themselves of the commitment required in a relationship. It is because they don't trust that others can deliver the way they do. Another example here is that this sometimes, if to the extreme, it's almost a paranoia that others are here to get me or to hurt me. So again, just contrasting the wounded relationship with self and the wounded relationship with others. Now there's a third wound here. Okay, as far as relationship is concerned, this is the wounding of relationship with both self and others. When a person experiences this, they see of themselves less and they don't trust others' ability to see who they are. They doubt the authenticity of relationship with self and others. And they tend to feel disconnected from both self and others. And also they feel fundamentally alone, even when they are in relationships. And then they also question both their own reality and others' perceptions. Now, there is the wounding here is not, oh, too bad, the third wound is the worst because it's a wounding relationship with self and others. Not necessarily. You can have an extreme self-inflicted wound in your relationship with self to a point where it could be depressing and despairing. And, same thing with the wounded relationship with others. It's the kind of experience and the degree of trauma that you might have experienced in the past. So again, just want to highlight these three important woundedness that I need to establish first as before I go to the next level, because we will contrast this wounded with another areas of woundedness. Okay, let me summarize this segment here. There's woundedness in terms of our relationship with self, relationship with others, and relationship with self and others. What would it look like if we are hoping to seek a path towards healing, a path to integration? If our woundedness is with self, it's important for us to seek the path that leads to self-acceptance and internal validation, self-compassion. If we are seeking path to heal our relationship or wounded relationship with others, the path leads to trust and authentic connection And the path towards healing our woundedness towards self and others is the path that leads to integration and authentic presence. Okay. So I'm going to pause here as far as the three woundedness that we just covered for self and others, because I want you to get ready for the next one. Okay. Because again, this is a Kintsugi assessment tool. I want you to, this will be available, by the way, and this will help you as chaplains and those who would like to be Kintsugi mentors. This is a primary tool. Okay, so let me introduce you to another a package of free, if you may, assessment tool of woundedness. And this one is the love, hope, faith, wounds. Okay. Um, in in, in Christian theology and perspective, especially those who love the writings of Paul, Paul highlighted the three things that remain, and this is in a little quite a, discussed in depth in the book Unshakable. Okay, so Paul was talking about the three things that remain: faith, hope, and love. These three remains because they are here from the very beginning. We are all created in God's image. And what does that mean? How can we trace the divine DNA in us? You know, in the gospel, when Jesus was introducing the idea of heaven, he said, if you want to see heaven, you have to be converted like a child and seek heaven from that perspective. Why it's important for us to be converted like a child? Because as individuals or as persons born into this world, that childhood experience, being babies, okay, even from infancy, you can trace these DNAs in us. No one taught a child how to love. No one taught a child how to hope. No one taught a child how to exercise faith. What do this mean? Okay. A child has this freedom to connect and belong. A child has this freedom to deliver and matter. He never asks if he does matter. He would cry, he would demand, he knows he matters. And this child has this wonderful relationship with their identity and worth. Okay. No one actually build that identity in them. It's already in place. But being born in this imperfect world, we get hurt along the way. We experience pain. Love that is unconditional has become unconditional. Love of hope that has this freedom to believe in oneself, that we do matter, that we could deliver, that we could be who, we could achieve. The heavenly potential that was given to us was automatically embraced by a child. But because of imperfection of the environment that we're in, we tend to be to doubt our ability to deliver and our freedom to trust in the goodness of self and others. That's quite natural for a child. But as we live in this trying and imperfect world, sometimes we experience betrayal and abandonment, and therefore our faith is also wounded. Okay, so this I want to highlight. Okay, there is a natural freedom for us to connect and belong. We call that love. A natural freedom for us to count, to matter, to deliver, and make a difference. That is hope. And a natural freedom for us to trust our own identity, our worth, and value. The problem is, it is not a perfect world. In our relationship, we get hurt. and experience different kinds of wound. Now, I'd like to, to share more about this woundedness in details. So let me start with love. Okay. For those who are wounded in love, they have this question in their heart. Can I trust others with my heart? Because if I belong, if I connect, which is a natural, not only freedom, but a longing. There is a longing to belong and there is a longing to connect. But there is this nagging question, can I trust others with my heart? This is a question of a person who was wounded in the area of love. Will I be accepted if I show my true self? Okay, so these are the questions of a person who's been wounding in the area of love. Now, a person tend to cope when they experience this woundedness. For example, a person tend to find ways on how to protect themselves from rejection, because rejection is
a small little spiral notebook.
Oh. Yeah, I'm gonna ask if you could mute your microphone. That would be great. As you come in.
Let me get it. So they don't.
Vivian, can you please mute yourself? We can continue here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Welcome everyone who are just coming in.
I'm sorry.
So this woundedness, okay. The love, for example, we'll start with this one. We tend to find ways on how to protect ourselves from rejection. Rejection is very common in the area of love, hope, and faith. So it is not just rejection is not something that's going to wound only the area of love. Okay, it's across the board. Now, before I continue discussing this, I just want to highlight we are now entering this a little bit challenging way to use this tool, but you'll get it as we continue. Okay. You see, we're already discussing two areas of woundedness. One is woundedness of relationships with self, others, and self and others. And this one is the realm of love. So what if our woundedness in the realm of love highlighted by our woundedness in our relationship, either with self, with others, or with both? I'm going to give you a picture of what would look like if our wounding is, in relationship and then highlighted by the particular realm or core motivation, if you may. I'm going to call faith, hope, and love the core motivation. If that is woundedness, the picture would look like this. So you will see LO, LS, and LOS here. What do this mean? LO is your woundedness in the area of love and relationship with others. LS is a wounding of, in the realm of love and relationship with self. And LOS is the wounding relationship, the realm of love and wounded relationship with self and others. So this is the strategy of a person whose woundedness is in the realm of love and their relationship with others. The strategy to protect themselves from further pain is to maintain a surface level of connection, to keep relationship light, manageable, and avoid deep disappointment. This person hates pain. This person gives life. I mean, they're gifted. They would like to experience life. They don't want to miss things out. So they know they can deliver. They know they can be a life of the party. They can manage their situation very well. That strength is also their go-to place to protect themselves from being hurt. They know how to find the exit door when things are getting messy. And here's the reason why they do have this tendency. It's because their relationship with others has been wounded. They no longer trust others' ability to love them the way they could love others. Okay? So that is the person whose woundedness is in the realm of love and others. Now, what if in the realm of love, your woundedness is in your relationship with self? Okay? You tend to, no one's going to protect you. You see yourself unlovable. That's a challenge of wounded relationship with self. Okay. So if you see the pendulum swing here from others and self, it would look like this. Others, they know that they can love. They know that they are lovable. You know, they don't have doubt, but they doubt that others could deliver. Others could love them the way they love themselves, and others could love them the way they love others. That's the doubt of LO. But LS, no doubt, they are already convinced that self is unlovable, especially if self is vulnerable, especially if self is weak. So, because no one's going to save them and no one's going to be there for them, they're going to make sure that they find strength to protect themselves. Okay. Because you take away that strength, it would be this terrible lens that they use, that they see a very ugly, unlovable self. So to compensate is to make sure they build fortress and strength. You will see a lot of people who are very, assertive, sometimes aggressive, naturally in their um, presentation of strength, as far as their relationship with others. But because deep within, they're struggling with having a very vulnerable and weak self. Now, what if your relationship with others and self is the very thing that's wounded, okay, in the realm of love? So to protect yourself, you tend to create a persona that can be loved by others. It could be roles, it could be achievement, it could be accomplishment. If you have the position, the status, and the power, the things that the role in the society, that's easier to love. And this is the strategy, the coping mechanism of LOS. Because if you take away the roles, the status, the success, then this LOS would know that they can't be loved, and others don't see them as lovable as they want to be. So that is the dilemma. So these are the 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 coping strategy of a love-based woundedness. In other words, to protect themselves, they tend to avoid deep intimacy for the LO. For the LS, they tend to display strength and self-sufficiency. And for LOS, they tend to protect themselves through adaptation and performance. So that's love. Okay. So again, we will be covering two more here: the love, hope, and faith. Okay. We're done with love. And once I'm done with hope and faith, I'm going to open this door for questions and further discussion. Okay. But let me, again, highlight the meaning of hope here. Hope-based types have this fundamental need for significance and meaning. By the way, as you know, naturally by birth, we have this birthright to matter. We know, even as a child, we know that we are significant. Why would a child go to mama or papa, regardless of who is sitting at the table? Because they know they do matter. They know they do count. Okay. But what if the parents, for example, ask the child not to join the table because it's only for adults or significant people? See, it's an imperfect world. Then they start asking this question: do I matter? So in this woundedness, we will contrast this again to the three areas of woundedness that we already discussed as far as relationship is concerned. So what happens when your hope wound is joined by your woundedness in terms of your relationship with others? You tend to you tend to stand out and be recognized as a special human being. Why? If you see that tendency in you, this is the answer to that question. Because you no longer believe that others can see you if you are ordinary. Unless you are special, people won't actually see you. So your tendency is to go the extra mile. If you are an artist, you want to make sure your work shine. If you are, whether a carpenter or even a pastor, your tendency is to really to shout to the world that you exist. You know, teenagers usually are suffering with this woundedness, and they tend to, if they're, especially if they're excluded, those people who are in this area, uh, instead of complying, the more they would shout the difference and the uniqueness that they have through their hairstyle, tattoos, or the way they clothe themselves. This is the area of those who are having dealing with a wounded relationship with others in the realm of hope. Now, HS, okay, from others to self. Here's where the pendulum swings. Go back to the woundedness with self. In the realm of hope, if your area of woundedness is with self, you tend to believe that you don't matter. HO, they do believe that they matter, except that they wonder why people don't see that. But HS, they believe they matter. Now, they don't believe they matter unless they do something with it. So HS try to cope by working hard to develop certain efficiency and competence, or knowledge. Mastery is very important for HS, because again, you take that away, they no longer believe that they do count. They no longer believe that they do matter. And now, if your woundedness is with others and self, HOS, in the realm of hope, you don't want to be seeking out to stand. You don't want to stand out and get people's attention, because you no longer believe that, one, they see you, and two, you don't believe you matter. How do you deal with that pain? So HOS tend to build their own system, their own world, sheltered from the pressure of their external world. But at the same time, they don't want to be isolated. So they know how to blend and how to hide themselves, keeping their idealized world inside of them while being harmoniously living with others. They are very compliant, but at the same time, very stubborn and protective of their internal world. Why? Because again, you take that away, they don't trust that others see them or recognize them, and they don't believe that they do matter. That's the hope-based strategy. In other words, to protect oneself, if you are an HO, you tend to amplify and you tend to live in an idealized world, because in that world, you matter. In that world, you don't have to shine. And sometimes even in that world, you make your own self as the hero, to shine, because in your reality, you don't shine. So this is the tendency when you withdraw in the real world and then shine in your idealized world. That's how hope-based would protect themselves. Now, HS would tend to focus on gathering resources and making sure that there is enough for themselves. Why? Because if you take that away, they don't believe others would be there for them because they don't matter. So it's important for HS to have enough resources, whether it's financial or skill set or knowledge, it's important for them to protect themselves because they don't think without those resources, they don't think they would matter. Or maybe they already thinking that they no longer matter because of low self-esteem. Therefore, that's how they compensate to gather more. Now, HOS tends to withdraw. They tend to preserve the energy through minimal engagement, but at the same time, okay, they know how to be with others. They don't want to be isolated, but at the same time, they know how to preserve their energy and protect the internal space so that you don't have to make them demonstrate if they do matter or not. By mingling and by harmoniously living with others, they can protect themselves. Because if they can blend with others to a point where you no longer notice them, then it's a good way of protecting themselves. The last thing that they want is to put them on spot and ask them to demonstrate or to do something to deliver, and then having this pressure of proving that they do matter, even though that no one's asking them that question. That question is already nagging inside HOS. And finally, the third wounding is the faith-based type. Okay. The question of the faith-based type is this: who am I? It's an identity question. This is a fundamental question. We know that this is an existential and theological question. It's really a deep question, but it's very, very important for a faith-based type. And why do they ask these questions? Because their ability to see who they are has been wounded. Because their question is there really goodness in me? Or therefore, is there goodness in others? So their strategy would look like this. If your wounding is in your relationship with others, you tend to seek approval through conformity and perfect performance. Meaning, if you no longer know who you are, where will you go? Especially if your wound is in your relationship with others. You know that others are there to get you. You know that others are there to criticize you. And mistakes and failure is very painful for those who are struggling with identity. So the identity right now, what's mostly attractive for FO is standards, rules, okay, achievements. Because if they can closely abide with the standards and become the standards themselves, which is the identity, or become the integrity itself, okay, they confuse identity with integrity, then they can protect themselves from others' criticism. So if you are a perfectionist, if you are dying to protect what is right and what is the standard, there's nothing wrong with that desire, with that gift, but you may want to check your attachment. Your attachment might say a lot about your woundedness, because if you take away your wonderful ability to reach several kinds of standards, if you take that away, maybe the next question is, who would you become? Who would you be outside the standards? Now, pendulum swing go to S, from O to S. If your woundedness is in your relationship with self. Self, the difference between FO and FS is FO, it's very hard to trust that others recognize your identity and your value. FS, they already know that they don't have identity or value. Sometimes even they don't even know who, because they don't even know who they are in the identity. Sometimes they don't even know that they do have that need. But you will realize you have that need by your coping. For example, for FS, it is important for them to help others and do good. Why? Because in helping others and doing good, now they have the information to use to understand their own identity. So their identity is attached and their worth is attached by doing something virtuous, moral, or loving and serving others. You take that away, they no longer know who they are. And sometimes it's enough for them, it's enough to be identified with another person, with other people's authority or fame or kindness, again, because they're suffering with their own identity. So what if your woundedness is OS, FOS? Okay. You don't trust yourself, the goodness in you, you don't trust others. What happens to you? For FOS, it is important that they are protected. So if they can trust self and others, here's the compensation. Before they could trust themselves, they need to equip themselves up first. And before they could trust others, others have to prove that they are the authority or expert in their matter, in their field. So, that's how dubious FOS is, okay? So they tend to equip themselves because if no one is there, they tend to be there to make sure the environment is safe, stable, and secure. If they feel that they are not enough, then they would look for something bigger than themselves to provide that sense of safety. It could be an organization, it could be church, it could be military, it could be gangs, it could be member, it could be position, something bigger than them. It could be philosophy. Okay. And they tend to, these three, FOFS and FOS, they tend to, they're more settled with the black and white duality kind of thinking because it is easier and safer. It protects them. Again, because everything that it's hard to perceive and understand, the seeing, it is very hard for them to trust. To them, seeing is trusting. You take that away, then they no longer know who they are. So this is the contrast, okay? The matrix here. Faith, hope, and love. Let me see if we have. Okay, let me just finish this. So for FO, the tendency is it's a performance focus. Make sure that they follow the rules meticulously and maintaining, not only appearance, but something that would meet the standard. FS embraces a deep belief of that worth comes through others' approval and validation. And FOS, it's important for them to create control system, to test trustworthiness, the experts in this world, and to prepare for the worst cases. These are the contrasts, okay? So let me stop sharing here. By the way, this would be available to you. It's a link, a Canva link. So in summary, these are the things that I have discussed. The core motivation. You can identify who you are in this core motivation, okay? And then if you want to know your woundedness, just contrast them with this another response recognition guide here. If you can identify most, just pick one that you can relate most, and then you put these two together: the core motivation, okay, this one, and then the response recognition guide. Once you identify who you are in this process, you can combine them together, and then you would have an idea of your own woundedness or your client's woundedness if this is something that you would like to use in the psychoeducation space. We don't use this in chaplaincy. We just use the tools in our mind, but in the psychoeducation encounter, you may want to use this. Okay. So the core motivation here, love, hope, and faith. The response pattern that will help you identify if your woundedness is LOLS or LOS, HOS, HO, and so forth. And this is the primary characteristics.